Tailwind is a utility first CSS framework, and as a beginner, you should try to avoid using it. It's one of my favorite framework and probably the only framework which I use nowadays a lot. So, what is this Tailwind? The Tailwind is just that it has set of classes and you use those classes in order to create element. For example, in order to create button, you require some padding, you require some margin, and you require some color as well as maybe shadow. So all these separate things have separate classes and you apply it to your HTML element whenever you are coding it. So the thing is, you should apply all these classes. So when you are applying all these classes, the button is visible and you have option to change whatever the element you want to change in this particular thing. For example, if you want your button to look little bit bigger, you can increase the padding in it. If you want your button to look at certain color, you can specify which color it needs to be and it will be that color only. Unlike other framework like Bootstrap or Material CSS or some other framework which I don't know of, all those framework usually provide a set of things. For example, they will provide button with certain 6 or 7 colors, and more than that it doesn't have option, and in order to change it you have to manually go to CSS and update it. But that's not the case in Tailwind. In Tailwind, it will be done programmatically whenever you are coding it. So that it's little bit different from other framework like Bootstrap or other things where all the classes are available to use, and in Tailwind it's not like that. In Tailwind, whenever you are developing something, that time itself the classes gets created and all the magic things happen whenever you are developing, not when you are like releasing it. But as a beginner, you should try to avoid using it, because whenever you are just getting started with HTML and CSS, you have no idea what is padding, you have no idea how to change color, or you don't have any idea like how does flexbox or mobile first design works. So because of all these things, it's actually not a good suggestion to use Tailwind whenever you're just getting started. First, let's just learn basics of CSS so that you know that what and all classes are available in Tailwind. It's not like you have to by heart all the classes which are available in Tailwind. It's just that you need to understand what properties gets manipulated whenever you are doing something in CSS. So that, as I said, button, you need to know how to make that button at least look better using just CSS before jumping into Tailwind and start using the classes. Else what will end up happening is you will try to copy even simple button from Tailwind documentation or somewhere in order to get the code instead of actually coding that button using Tailwind. So you might ask now, what is the benefit of using Tailwind CSS? The biggest benefit which I found is you don't have to write any new class names. This would have been biggest problem whenever I was coding. Whenever I was coding, I used to write some weird class name and I used to go to CSS file and I used to edit it. And the thing was, while doing it, it would have been fine. But after 3-4 months, when I come back and when I look at that project, I had no idea why that class even exists in the first place. And also nesting would have been very tough with the custom class name, and all the class names were sounding like my class, this, that, container. So all these classes made sure it's very difficult to move on with this. And that time when I found Tailwind CSS, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Also, another benefit which I found in this particular framework is nowadays we use React or some other framework in the front end. So if you make one component named button and you apply Tailwind CSS to it, and you can use that button anywhere. It's not like you need to worry about having long class names everywhere in your code project. And another counterpoint to this is it's actually good if all the class names are visible in your code itself, so that you know what is being changed whenever you are coding, instead of going to CSS file and seeing what the hell that class is doing. So because of that, I think it's actually benefit for people to do whatever the CSS they want to do while they are coding HTML itself, rather like coding HTML first and then applying CSS. That's another bonus point for Tailwind CSS. Another question you might ask is there any problem when we are using Tailwind CSS once I move forward as a beginner and become like intermediate or even pro with the CSS. The thing is, Tailwind doesn't enforce you some things like Bootstrap or anything like that. You can import Tailwind and you don't have to use any Tailwind classes if you don't want to use other than maybe colors or maybe some utility classes. And you can write all the custom CSS by yourself in another file and import it. It's not like Tailwind is something different from CSS. In the end, Tailwind converts everything to CSS. That's why you can add your custom class names and you can even create your own classes on the go using Tailwind utilities. For example, in order to change color, Tailwind provides some awesome range of colors, maybe like color slate 100, color slate 200. If you don't understand all these things, don't worry, I'll put somewhere here like how does it look like. So all these classes make sure that you get different colors. But what if you want to have one custom class and you want to use it? That also Tailwind provides some amazing utilities that you can add color dash whatever the color in hexadecimal you want. I'll put somewhere in the code here, and you can see that how nicely you can create classes on the go using your HTML itself without even touching any CSS file or anything like that. That's another benefit of using Tailwind CSS, and it doesn't create any problem. If you want to create your own classes, amazing, you can create it. And if you want to create custom classes using Tailwind utilities, so that also option is available by adding at include or some other decorators whenever you are coding. It uses post CSS, so because of that all the post CSS awesome abilities are available, and we can use it to create custom class using Tailwind's utilities. So that's another benefit. So now that again the main question of this particular video is will Tailwind help me as a beginner? Yes, it will help you as a beginner, but only if you know some HTML and CSS in the beginning only. If you directly jump into Tailwind, you will not understand anything in it. If you use some kind of CSS and if you do some CSS crash course, or if you take a HTML and CSS course, then only you will be able to make sure coding with the Tailwind is much cooler, and it's awesome to code in Tailwind. That's why after you get familiar with basic CSS utilities, maybe flex, maybe padding, maybe color, all those things, then using Tailwind is breeze, and you'll love using it. But as a beginner, I recommend you not to use it just because it's a framework, it's not CSS. So learn CSS first, then use Tailwind. It's not like you have to learn for like a few months. Learn HTML and CSS for maybe 1 week or 2 week. Take one course, and then eventually you are getting familiar with all the classes. Jump into Tailwind and you start using it everywhere, and you are going to love it, and you can make use of all the power it provides you when you are developing some project of yours, and you are going to like it. So is that the future of CSS? Maybe, probably. Tailwind might be the future, or Tailwind might go away eventually, and some other amazing framework might come which replaces Tailwind. Same thing happened with Bootstrap also. So we can't say something is future or not future, but it's interesting technology for today. So I recommend you to use it. I recommend you to learn it. But as a beginner, don't use it. First learn CSS, then use this. So that's it for this video, guys. And if you want to know more about Tailwind, here is one video, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.